We're going to continue with the notes here on the quotient rule. And we're going to do some other examples, some different interpretations of the quotient rule, and different ways that the problems could be asked. So for example, here, they're giving us two graphs. They're giving us the graph of f and the graph of g. And then they're talking about two other functions, p and r. P is the combination of f and g by division, right? So f of x over g of x, and r is defined as sine of x over f of x. I need to use my graphs in order to answer the questions that are given. So looking at the first one, it says find p prime of 5. So before I can find the derivative of p at 5, I first need to know the what of p?
The equation? No.
I need to know the equation of p, but the equation of what?
Oh, the derivative.
Of the derivative of p, right? Very good. So we need to find the derivative of p. Now we know that p is what? F of x over g of x. So can we get the derivative of that function? Alright, let's do it. So p prime of x, we have to use what rule for this one? Quotient, because it is a quotient. It is the division of two functions. So let's do it. Low. D high. Minus high. D low. All over low squared. Awesome. So did we already find the derivative? Yes. Now we just need to evaluate it at what? 5. So plug in a 5 and let's work it out. Okay, I like to write it out so I don't mess up. So g of 5 times f prime at 5 minus f of 5 times g prime of 5. All over g of 5 squared. Now we need to figure out what all those numbers are. How am I going to figure out what g of 5 is? Look at the graph, right? So I go to the g graph, and I go to 5 on the x, and I figure out where I'm at, which is where? At 5. So g of 5 is 5. So we have 5 times something. Minus, what's f of 5? Go to the f graph, go to 5, and where am I at? Negative 3.5. So how do I write that? Negative 3 over 2? I don't know. Negative 3.5? Okay. Times g prime of 5, we'll figure that out right now. All divided by g of 5 squared. So what was g of 5 again? 5? So 5 squared. How am I going to figure out the f prime of 5 and the g prime of 5? We need the slope, right? So the derivative represents the slope of the tan line at 5. So what would be the slope of the tan line here? The same as this one, right? So what's the slope of this line here? Negative 1 over 2? Very good. So right there next to that 5, I need to have negative 1 over 2. How about g prime of 5? What's the slope of this piece over here? Positive 1. Are you with me? Alright, so the rest is just simplifying. So negative half times 5, that's negative 5 over 2, right? Plus 3.5. How could I rewrite that as something over 2, just to make my life easier? 7? Okay. And it's all of that divided by 25. So that gives me negative 2 over 2. 2 over 2 over 25, which is really 1 over 25. Could I have written this part as a decimal too instead of making this a fraction? How much would this be as a decimal? Negative 2.5 plus 3.5 gives me 1, right? Divided by that 5 squared, which is 20. Not too bad? Alright, let's jump to the bottom. What do they want us to do there? Equation of the tangent line to the graph of p of x when x equals 5. So what are the two things we need for the equations of tangent lines? My point, we know part of it, 5 comma something. How do I find the other part? Plug it into the original, which is p, so I want p of 5, which is f of 5 over g of 5. I'm using this original function right here. So what was f of 5? Negative 3.5, and what was g of 5? 5. So we're going to leave it like that. Negative 3.5 over 5. I don't have a calculator, so we're good. Good? Second thing we need is the slope of the tangent line at 5. Do we already have that? Yeah, right? That's the derivative of the function at 5, which was what? 1 over 25. So together, can we write the equation? Let's do it. Y plus 3.5 over 5 equals 1 over 25 times x minus. Papitas. Super easy? Alright, let's try the next one. Find r prime at 0. Before I can evaluate the derivative, I need to know the derivative. So what was the r function? Sine of x over f of x, right? So we need to get the derivative of this guy, and it's a quotient, so we got to use the quotient rule. So low f of x, d high, cosine x, minus high, d low, all over low, squared. Bless you. Do we get the derivative? Yes. Now we need to plug in what? 0. So that's f of 0 times cosine of 0 minus sine of 0 times f prime at 0 all over f of 0 squared. What's sine at 0? 0 times f prime of 0 is going to give me what? 0, right? What's cosine of 0? 1, okay, times f of 0. How do I figure that out? Look at the graph, go to 0, and what's the value? Negative 5. So it's negative 5 times 1 minus 0 over negative 5 squared. That gives me what? Negative 5 over 25, which is negative 1 over 5. Kindergarten stuff? You got to be very careful. Write out the notation and look for each one carefully so you don't mess up. Okay? Don't try to skip steps to save time. Alright, the next part. Find the equation of the tangent line to r of x when x equals 0. Again, what are the two things I need for that, Ashley?
Equation. Oh no, the product.
Very good. So I need my point of tangency. So we know it's 0 comma something. How do I find the other something? Plug it into the original. So we get sine of 0 over f of 0. What's sine of 0? 0. F of 0? That's just 0, right? So my point of tangency is at 0, 0. Let's find our slope of the tangent. Do we already know that? Negative 1 over 5th is what we did up there. So let's put it together. Y minus 0 equals negative 1 over 5 times x minus 0. Can I rewrite that a different way? Or would that simplify to me? Very good. Y equals negative 1 over 5. It's probably how it would look on an answer choice. Easy? Okay, so this is a different way that they could ask you to apply the quotient rule without actually having the functions to begin with, right? So you're using the graphs, you're using a different way, a different approach to answer the question. And that's what I'm trying to prepare you for, is different ways that they could ask a question on the AP test. Well, you will have to implement the skills that we're learning. So I have to put everything together in order to work them out. Good? So now look at this one. Now what am I giving you? I'm not giving you a graph anymore. I'm giving you a what? A table. So now I'm going to answer questions using the table. Alright, so let's do it. So the table has x, it has f of x, g of x, f prime, and g prime. And the question says to estimate the value of g prime at 2.5. So how can I do that? How can I estimate a derivative at 2.5 of g? Very good. We have to get 2 points, right? I can't just get the average of the derivatives. Remember we had the discussion last time? So we cannot get just the average of the two derivatives. I need to pick 2 points around 2.5 because this is talking about a slope, right? So what are 2 points that I could use? 2 and 3? Okay, so 2 comma what? -1. Good. How come not 2? Because that's f. Very good. Be careful. Make sure you're using g. And what would be another point close to 2.5? 3 and -3. Not 6 because that's what? That's g prime. That's already a slope. I'm picking 2 points that are close to the one that I want and finding the slope between them. It should be similar to the slope at that value. Okay, so let's do it. G prime at 2.5 is approximately, how do I find that slope? y2 minus y1, okay, so -3 minus -1 over 3 minus 2. So that becomes plus, so -2 over 1, which is -2. So the estimate for the value of g prime at 2.5 is approximately -2. Easy? Alright, cool. Let's try the next one. So they're telling us p of x is g of x divided by f of x. What is the value of p prime at 4? So in order to figure this out, Elian, what do I need to do first? Huh? Find a point? Why would I need a point? Find them in the table, okay? I'm going to need to find stuff in the table. But before I can do that, I need to find what? Anybody help her? I need to find the equation of the derivative, right? So I need to know what p prime is first, Elia, before I can plug in the 4. I know what p is, not p prime. Okay, so how do I find p prime? Quotient rule. So let's do it. Low. F of x. I'll say the rule, you tell me what to write, okay? So low, f of x. D high minus high, d low over low squared. Okay? So now, Elia, now we're ready to put in the 4 so I can find p prime at 4. And then I'm going to use my table to find the values. I think that's what you were getting to. So p prime of 4 is going to be f of 4 times g prime of 4 minus g of 4 times f prime of 4 all over f of 4 squared. So what's the x value that we're paying attention to? 4, so I'm looking at these numbers down here. Those are the only ones that I'm looking at. If I want f of 4, it's 1. G of 4, it's 7. F prime at 4, 8. G prime at 4, -2. Do you understand?
Yes.
Alright, so let's do it. F of 4, what is it?
1.
1. G prime at 4, -2. Be very careful, okay? Minus G of 4, 7. F prime at 4, 8. All over f of 4 squared. So what are we going to end up with here? 1 times -2? -2 minus 56 over 1, so that gives me negative 58. Alright, so we did the first part. Now let's keep going. It says, what does this value say about the graph of p of x when x equals 4, and give a reason for your answer. So what is this telling us about the original graph at 4? What's happening to it? Very good. P of x is decreasing at x equals 4, what? Because p prime of x is less than 0. That means that it's negative, right? Good, you remember that. How do I know I have a maximum? What happens to p prime of x? Changes from negative to positive? From positive to negative. The function changes from increasing to decreasing. The derivative goes from positive values to negative values. That's a maximum, right? When it goes from decreasing to increasing, the derivative changes from negatives to positive. Don't forget all of that, okay? Because we're going to use it later again. We have to make sure we remember all that. Pretty good? All right, you ready to turn it up? Let's turn it up. Or you want me to stop? I can stop right there if you don't want me to do these examples. Should I do them? Okay, let's do them. Let's try this one here.